Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on December 23rd, 2022 at approximately 4:29 p.m. PST. Well, I did cut today a little close, but usually I like getting on like 5 minutes ahead of schedule. But what I desire to talk to you about today, quite frankly, is how are we going to take this and take the energy we've got here? Missing. How are we going to take the energy that is permeating the world right now? And I'm talking about the positive side of the energy. Okay. That is the real key that we've got to look at because, much as I agree, I was watching a show the other day and what they basically were saying, it was a movie. And what they were basically saying was, Christmas is special because it's once a year. Okay, and in all fairness, I agree with that. That didn't work. Well, let's try this. There we go. But that doesn't mean we can't carry the energy into the new year. And quite frankly, every day from here on. So what I've done, where did I put it? There it is. Okay, don't need that one. Hey. Excuse me. Don't require that. Okay. So we are up and running. And I should let this, this is a good idea. We get up and running and then get a text. That's always handy. So just let my other half know that I've just gone live. Because the reality is, if you desire your relationship to work, what do we got here? Hey, Tony D, welcome aboard. And you pull in with the gold. We could, we all have the choice. And the reality of it is this. Okay, when we're taking a look at the way the world is running, you have a choice whether to focus on the positive or whether to focus on the negative. You do have free will, and you can do what you choose. But what you don't have freedom from, you got free will, you got free choice, you don't have freedom from consequence. Yeah, no doubt there, Tony, but I am glad you made it. Now I've been dealing with a lot of things lately. And one of the things that I have to look at, and it's really, I feel I have to look at, and I strongly encourage you to look at it as well. Take a look at your past year, okay, and really look at the things you've done because there is nothing that you can do to change whatever you've already done. Okay, I was talking to a young lad today. And like I told him, I know I've made mistakes over the last little while. I know I've made some really stupid moves. I mean, you think about it. And this is just this is just the reality behind life. Okay. The statistical side of it is this. The people that end up with a sudden windfall, 90% of them, from what I gather, end up in worse shape than they were in before they actually got a windfall. Now, in my case, I ended up with an estate clearing. I ended up with $100,000 in my hand. Okay. And it is either locked up or gone. But what I didn't do was correct some of the patterns. And this is something I could beat myself up over. I could get really upset with it. I could do what most people seem to do and go, it's your guy's fault. And in all fairness, that doesn't work. And we have Dogface coming in with the silver. So it really does boil down to let's take a look. Hope you're doing well there, Dogface, you and yours. One of these days, I hope you guys don't mind because, and Joe, how we doing? And Joe, you come in with the bronze today. I refer to people in the chat room by the name that's posted. Now, if you'll notice at the top of the list, one of the things that I am committed to doing where it comes to helping other people is the regular people that are in here with a chat room, like with a YouTube channel. All I need to get from you, and there's a whole list of ways of doing it, listed below this video. Okay, there's a whole list of ways of getting word to me. So, absolutely drop me a line. Make sure I've got your email, your YouTube channel. Okay, and I will be happy to post it at the top of the list as I'm coming on, which is a habit. Well, not exactly a habit, but it's a policy I've decided on for me. Okay. The reality of life is this. We have a choice of what we're doing. Now, the Christmas spirit, the one thing I can say about it is whether you believe in Christmas, whether you believe in Christ, in Santa, none of it matters. What does matter is if you notice around the world, people seem to try and treat each other a little bit more reasonably during the Christmas season. Now, the funny part about it from my end is I knew what was coming. Okay. But like many of you, I went, I'm just going to keep putting it off. And I've got things I've got to get done. But, with that in mind, Dogface, I'm presuming you're down in Australia if you're looking at this being Christmas Eve. Because my Christmas Eve, I'm up in Canada, and my Christmas Eve doesn't start until tomorrow. But it would be really nice if people could could carry on this energy of giving, of cooperation, of communication, carry it on through the new year. In spite of the amount of negativity that is going around. Okay. And sad to say, I see a lot of it being propagated. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's got to be warmer up there than it is here. We've been hitting minus 28-ish. Right. Question for you. Down in Australia, you work with Celsius as well? We've got a choice as a society. We can take this little period of time and go, okay, this is the week we're going to be nice. Or we can carry it on we can carry it on into the new year and really push to make this an ongoing thing. And this is one of the issues that I've come up with, right, that I've come across. I was looking at doing the shorter videos, and what it turns out, from my end anyway, is for doing excerpts, it's absolutely, it does work really well. Otherwise, I tend to get sidetracked. So what I'm looking at right now is how do we turn around and make 2023 even better than what it is setting up to be. Okay, it's up to you whether you do something, because the reality is, no matter how much I talk or anybody else does, it's up to you to change the energy in your life and start making it something more effective for you. One of the biggest tricks in the book that I found is take a look at everything that's going on in your life and ask yourself, are you content with the way your life is going? If the answer is yes, this is a great thing. Carry on. But there's one thing you're not content with. It's time to take a look at that energy. Take a look at what's working. Okay. Once, take a look and see if it's working. If it's not working, it really is time to move everything out of the way that is holding you back. Now, I was working with a so-called publisher. No, I'm not going to give you their name. Okay. But that being said, because they were not doing what I required, and they certainly weren't doing what they had claimed they would, I've cut them loose. Now, next year, as in 2023, like we're looking at like a week away here. Okay. I am focusing. I've gone over the different things I've got on my list. Yeah, well, yeah, I've done. Well, watch the movie Slumberland. That's an interesting movie. Little twisted, but hey, what the heck? But I am glad you dropped in there, Tony. I wasn't entirely planning on coming on today, but I got thinking about it, and a lot of people that have come in here have mentioned the fact that 4:30 PST seems to work reasonably well. Okay, unfortunately for those of you down in Australia or in the Middle East, I suspect that's about the same point. Okay, I cannot accommodate everybody. This is just the reality of it, which is why I'm quite happy with the way that things work out, that I can post them and people can come back to them. Now, I am aiming at a couple of goals. Okay. The only goal, in all fairness, that I've really got, the only strong goal that I've got from my end, okay, is real simple. And that is, I came back to this world, to this lifetime, at this particular time for one primary purpose. And that is to remind virtually everybody that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, clearly, I cannot do this on my own, and all I can do is pass on what I can see happening, and ask you guys to help me spread the word that this is a doable project. Okay, they used to say way back, they used to say the Scottish clans would never unite. Well, tell the people in Scotland that. They seem to have done a reasonable job of it. The people in Australia, well, let's face it, they were considered, your ancestors were considered the dregs. Okay. Absolutely agree with you there, Joe. The ancestors of the people in Australia were considered the dregs. And from my understanding, from what I was taught, Australia basically was where they took all the criminals and put them down. Put them down, put them out of the British Empire, dropped them off on this huge island, continent, and went here, fend for yourselves. Now, you guys have come from your ancestors were absolutely a little on the sour side in many cases. But the people of Australia are a fantastic people overall. Okay. And much as I have my problems with dealing with people a lot of the time, hence I've become very reclusive in a lot of ways. But we have to start taking, it would be really wise for all of us to really, if will, join hands and make this a better world. Start communicating, start accepting each other as individuals, not as better or worse. Okay. And I like what Joe has said in the chat room here. Don't stress about what went wrong in 2022. Stuff happens. Just let it go. Now, this is a great idea, and I absolutely agree, support the idea. The sad reality, and I'm guilty of it myself, is some things that go sour we find a little difficult to let go of. Okay. Like the mistakes that I made with my own finances have left me in a state where next year I've already drawn boundaries and said, okay, this is what I'm working with, period. This is the money I've got coming in. It is time to deal with it as best I can. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, as I mentioned before, and let's just see if I've got them. There it is. Good. As I mentioned before, I've got a list of 12 things on this sheet of things I desire to complete by the end of 2023. Now, three of those things all kind of come together. I've already got 7 books in print. And if things go the way I'm aiming for them, And rest assured, I'm going to do everything in my power to make certain that they happen. I'll have 3 more in print before the end of the year. Okay, and I will keep you posted as they come clear. I'm still having trouble with computers, but I have bypassed a lot of the problem. And again, this is a question of take a look at what's going on with your life. If you're happy with it, this is great. One of the best ways of encouraging the energy to continue on Joe, absolutely take this one as a compliment, but you strike me as being a lot older than 43. Yeah, I was like that there, Dogface. Finances are a real simple issue. Okay. Budgets, what I discovered was budgets don't actually work. Tony, I'm going to ask you, this is why I keep an eye on the chat room here, is because some of you guys come up with really wonderful ideas. Tony, with regards to that, okay, if you would be kind enough to find a way, and if you look below this video, okay, you'll find all kinds of ways of connecting with me. If you can get that link to me to watch that particular video, I do feel I would be interested in it. Now, I don't spend a lot of time researching on anything. But one thing I do know for an absolute certainty from practical experience is that when we're dealing with the energy, when we're dealing with shifting energy, simply smiling at the person you're passing can work wonders for making their day better. Okay, I'm already putting a list together of the different gifts that I will be dealing with next year. Now, the reality of it is gifts are a great thing. The important thing with regards to Christmas, and this is just an idea and what I'm working on with a couple of gifts. Okay, when I was growing up, we had a neat little habit of complicating things by getting into the gift or figuring out how the one gift came together a very important little factor. Okay, almost as fun as the gift itself. So when we take a look at it, this is something that that we have to look at. From my standpoint, I'm going to be putting together puzzles in some cases, I'm going to put together puzzles that are going to encourage these people, encourage the recipients to actually solve the puzzle in order to get the gift. Now, that said, the gift will be put away and buried until they solve the problem, until they solve the puzzle. If they don't solve it, Carl, how you doing? Glad you can make it. Let me just check something here. Joe is the last one in beforehand. And Carl, well, Carl, you have come in with the honorable mention. The nice part about it is I'm going to be taking puzzles, as in go to give an idea of what the book is. Go to this book and find this word on this page. And I'm not talking about complicated puzzles. Okay, I'm working on a couple of different ideas. But the reality of it is, if I can, I can, by putting the gift at the end of a treasure hunt, it may encourage people to think a little more, okay, to do a little bit more interacting. And it really depends on what I'm aiming at, because I've got a list of things I've got to deal with. But I've just decided that this year coming up, most of what I do for Christmas, most of what I turn over to people is going to be hand done. Either now I'm not a woodworker, so if I'm going to turn something over by wood, right, I'm going to buy it already made as far as wood goes, and then put the effort into painting it. Okay, because from my standpoint, what I have found is the effort you put into the gift, not necessarily what that person actually wants. Okay, this idea of, oh, this is the big thing I want, go and get me that. That ain't the way I'm working this year. I'm not even bothering with the idea of asking people, well, what would you really like for Christmas? Ain't going to happen that way this year for me. But see, from my standpoint, and I love the way they put it in the show last night. And what was it called? Oh, it's actually a 6-part series on YouTube, or no, on Netflix. Okay. But they could have done it as a 3-hour show and been done with it, but they broke it into 6 parts running back to back. And it was called the Christmas Clauses. Okay. No, my apologies. I think it was called the Santa Clauses. Okay, they did a really neat job with it. I honestly wasn't really convinced it was a good setup in the first episode. But it's 6 half-hour episodes. And really what they came out and said, the long and the short of it, was Christmas is about giving. Okay, now, in my opinion, that's a good time to focus on it, okay? No problem there. We can build up to it. But when I take a look at it, okay, when I take a look at the whole idea of giving, I look at it the same way as I do when I start looking at this issue of Remembrance Day. Now, don't get me wrong. Remembrance Day, I absolutely believe in. But I'm a firm believer that people should remember the veterans that have helped to make these countries, relatively safe. Okay. We really should be remembering them all along, every year, every day of the year. But we can't do it every day of the year, and especially not as far as all the celebrations and what have you go. Why, Jay? Glad you could join us. Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. Hope things are going really well, or going really nicely for you. I would love to see this year. I would love to see people becoming more and more open. Okay. See, I only follow 3 laws. Okay. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. And I'm wondering, if I do that, I'm just going to create a problem for myself. So I'm not going to do that. I was thinking about trying to. Yeah, I appreciate that there, Chris. And welcome aboard. I finally broke the double pneumonia. I'm finally able to walk properly again. Not at full speed yet, but at least I can walk without the painkillers and muscle relaxants. I've actually been now, I think, 4 days without them, which for me, I'm quite happy with that. Now, the way I figure it, the last time I was sick was 25 years ago. So, aside from the heart attack and the stroke and a few toothaches. But with that in mind, what I'm looking at is a real simple issue. Okay, if I take that record, well, I'm about to turn 60, so that'll put me in my mid-80s before I bother with a cold or anything else again. I've had enough of being sick. And I know that sounds like a bizarre way of looking at illness and just go, I haven't got time for this. But what I do know for an absolute certainty is if you keep your energy level running high, if you keep your spirits high, it will help protect your health. Okay. Now, I came to the conclusion next year, yes, I'm going to do my best to make things work. Okay, I've got a number of people on the list that I already am aiming at, and I undoubtedly will add more to it as I go along. One other thing I am taking from a chap I knew a long time ago. Okay, what they do is they take a letter, and every month they do a little summary of what they did that month. Okay, now because I've got to have it done for December of next year, and I'm thinking today when I get done this live feed, I'm thinking today I'll do the summary of December to me, so that I've got that added. Okay, I'm ready to go. Aussie Sue, how we doing? Glad you could make it. Merry Christmas to you as well. I figure if I start writing a letter on computer and just do an addition to it every month, I'll end up with probably 2 pages, that I can turn around and ship off to the people just on an overall, here's how my year went. The good things, the bad things, here's where we are. Okay, and again, this is just a way to improve and to encourage solid communication between you and the people you know. Okay, I'm also looking at the issue, and I strongly encourage you, because this will help the energy in the new year. Take a look at the connections that you've got that are no longer serving you. I do so. Look at that. On this, I have contacts that I don't either talk to anymore or really have no interest in looking back to them. Okay. So I'm going to go through and wipe out the contacts I don't require in my phone, that I don't require. It's not a question of cleaning house. Okay. Like, there's a lot of people on Facebook I don't talk to. Okay. But at the same time, I'm looking at things from the standpoint of, it is possible to reset emotional connections. Many times now, I'm pretty black and white. Okay. Like I told my other half, the one thing there is no returning from is infidelity. Now, on the plus side, I don't go there. Okay, I just don't bother. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Okay. Now, I'm really happy right now. We've got 6 people listed in the chat room. And some of you may not be talking, which is great. Glad you're here anyway. Because I don't know which one. I don't know if there's a way of telling who's actually in the chat room or who's just listening. From my standpoint, it's not a real big issue. My purpose with this whole thing, with this whole YouTube channel, is to get the word out to virtually everybody. Everybody we can. If you know people that are not on the computer, and there's a lot of us, okay, it is time to work together to start spreading this message that, things have been complicated. We've just come through, we're just on the backside of this whole COVID disaster. I'm not getting into my take on it. I'm just telling you from the news reports and what have you, less and less is being said by it. And the fact that I'm hearing less about it pretty much says you've got to be hearing less about it. Because I don't watch the news. I scan, like when I'm on YouTube or on Facebook, that's where I get the information. Here's the thing, YJ. I found out impossible doesn't really apply. I have guided people in a relationship that had a fidelity problem. I've personally guided them back to a unification, back to a stable relationship. So is it possible? Absolutely, but only if both parties are willing and interested in it. Okay. Now, narcissistic abuse, let's face it, most narcissists are, number one, not in any position to agree to change. Okay, sometimes they are, which makes it rare, not impossible. And I'm a firm believer, personally, that every single one of you likely have your own hiccups, your own barriers, but virtually every barrier, every emotional distress that you've got can be worked past. For me personally, it's simply an issue of I'm not willing. If that happens, the trust is gone, and we're pretty much hooped. Fortunately, she sees that whole issue the same way. But the reality is, most people look at the word impossible. And if you go back to one of my earlier videos, I think probably near the beginning of 2021, but look up a subsection of language, specifically impossible. I'm pretty certain that I've got a video that I did on that about the real impact of it. I made one change in that word to shift my whole perspective on it. Okay. Yeah, and I definitely agree there, YJ. Improbable is absolutely on the money. Okay. What I did with the word impossible was I cut it in two to I'm possible. And the reason for that is, in my experience, in my opinion, whether you believe you can accomplish something or you believe you cannot, either way, you're likely to prove yourself right. Okay. Can I go and learn a new language? Certainly. Am I interested in it? At this point, not really. I've got too many other things on the go. I was talking to somebody just today, and I mentioned to them that, I was pretty much forced into retirement in a lot of ways. And he says, and the guy goes, yeah, he says, I've been dreading that. He says, I don't sit still well. I says, well, I've got myself occupied. I'm working on about 30 books right now. And he turns around and looks at me and he says, if you're working on 30 books, on writing 30 books, he says, that's not called retirement. And, in essence, he's right. I'm not going to be sitting around doing nothing. This much is clear. Philip, glad you can make it. The reality is this world is going to change. Where was I? I was looking at something here earlier. Just because I like keeping tabs on and letting people know. That is not what I need. So let's shift that back and get back to my channel on this other one here. That way I can find out exactly what I'm sitting on. There we are. Customize my channel. I'm actually not going to work on it. Okay, but right now, what did you do? Sure, I hit a button and the computer decides it's going to do its own thing. Oh well. Anyway, I caught a glimpse of it. Right now, one of my goals for the end of 2023 is to hit 1,000 subscribers. In this fashion, maybe we can get things started. Well, no, we will get things started. I know there are other people out there doing the same kind of thing, as in striving to encourage people to treat each other better. Okay. In a more functional fashion. Now, if I go to my dashboard, there we go. And according to my dashboard in YouTube, I am currently sitting at 339. Now, if you haven't done so already, in order to reach my goal, I'm really going to require your guys' assistance. Okay, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll find a nice little button there for your convenience. Okay, but I tell you, I've never felt until I started doing this, and big hats off to Dave Scott at Spaced Out Radio. because the people that were in that are frequenting his line were absolutely instrumental. Oh, that is unfortunate, Joe. I'm working on a computer. I'm really worried whether it's going to survive. I wish I had some idea as to what to do about it, but frankly, I don't. But they really did, and many of you, I know, you've been around for a coon's age now. Uh-oh. Now, can everybody else hear me? Where are we here? Just gonna see if it's coming through on this end. Turn the music on. Okay. Yeah, I was just checking mine because I keep the one video up on my end so I can see what you guys are seeing. Thank you so much, guys. Hey, football, glad you could make it. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, those are ones I didn't actually paint those. Okay. Those I found in a shop here. I got a whole pile of other dragons down back. But those ones that you see up on the shelf are ones that I found in a shop here and went, those will work very nicely. And from my standpoint, boils down to this. We have to. It is really something that we've got to start seriously looking at, regardless of what walk of life you come from. Now, here is an obvious example. Okay. When people are meeting other people, if you meet them in person, okay, what ends up happening is it's like, okay, that person has this skin color, they have this accent, they have this hair color, whatever. The neat thing about the live feed is I get to meet all these people that the only thing I've got to go on is the name that you use as a call name and the comments that are made. Okay, and this applies to everybody. Very few people can look at a name and go, "Oh, you're that color," or for that matter, you're male or female. Okay. Now, from my standpoint, this just helps with the communication lines and reestablishing them. Although that would be entertaining there, Philip. Having two heads in real life. There are a few people that are like that. From my standpoint, I've never met somebody with two heads. But I did meet somebody where, I kid you not, really, really nice kid. He had one eye here. The second eye was down here. His nose was turned sideways, and his mouth actually ran down the side of his face. Okay, he was born that way. Now, this is a genetic hiccup. Okay, but the reality of it is, when you actually talk to him, he was an absolute charmer. Just a really great personality. Okay, one guy in the complex I live in now, like I get along with most people in my complex, primarily because I just don't see them as a different type of person. They're just people. And the reality is, if you treat people decently, they will, in all likelihood, in turn, treat you a little better. Okay, and this is just one of these things we can, and it is imperative we do our best to bring into the new year. Okay, 2022 is almost behind us. We absolutely do. The reality is, Philip, my dad used to say that, he used to say, if everybody was the same, we'd be a very boring world. Okay, it takes people with every conceivable strength and every conceivable weakness to put together the combination that will make society thrive. Now, I keep hearing people talking about we've got too many people here. Yeah, no, we really, depends on where you're living, but the reality is Earth itself is not running out of room. Earth itself is with 8 billion people on the planet, certainly there are not that many places that are absolutely perfect for everybody. Okay, but different people like different things. Myself, I'm not very fond of the ice and snow. Okay, so what I ended up doing is I go, okay, there's snow outside, I don't have to go anywhere. Okay, and I'm just going to keep it that way. Yeah, I keep wondering, one thing I have noticed, Philip, is unfortunately with the way society has been going, we've been taught to fear everything. Okay. I know of one case where somebody turned around and said Merry Christmas to somebody and got charged with, they literally got legally charged with being racist. Okay. Simply because they said Merry Christmas. Now, this is just beyond stupid in my eyes. Okay. From my standpoint, I will say, obviously I say what I choose. Okay. But it's meant with the best of intentions. If I'm saying Merry Christmas, because yes, contrary to many people's beliefs, okay, I do believe in God. I do believe in Christ. I do believe in Santa, as in that funny little short, well, he's not really that short, that funny little fat guy in the red suit. Okay. I also believe in magic, not to mention off-worlders, ancient races. There's a lot of things that I believe in. But here's the neat part about it. Every professional shrink I've talked to has said the same thing. Okay. And that is that mentally speaking, my brain's working perfectly fine. I'm just a little different. That's just the way reality is for me. But if I can get people and just encourage people to really carry this energy of caring for each other, of really treating each other in a decent fashion, if I can encourage people to turn around and do that on a regular basis in the new year, we can make 2023 one heck of a decent year. But it is up to the individuals. This is not something that any one person can do. Okay. Well, I shouldn't say it's not. I mean, if you think about it, go back to the real motivators behind unifying different groups. Okay. Now, I came back to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, you think about it. Okay. Scotland, they used to say the clans would never unite. Okay. They used to say that the United States itself would never unite. Okay. And the monarchies would never fall. There's a lot of things where people said this will never happen. I'm here to tell you, given a simple enough direction, okay, we can turn this around. The question is, and I'd love to see the responses in the chat room for this one. The real question from my standpoint is from your perspective, from the perspective of both the people in the chat room and the listeners, is a real simple question from my end. Are you interested in doing your part to bring this world back into a sense of unity? In getting rid of the fear, in getting rid of in getting rid of the fear, in getting rid of the prejudice. Okay. Yeah, Judge Dredd. I mean, and the neat part about it, you take a movie like Judge Dredd, really good show. Really enjoyed it. I've watched it a number of times. But it does kind of paint an interesting picture. Okay. And hopefully we can take a look at this and go, okay, it is time to start reaching out to the people around us. And this is what I'm going to be watching for, okay, myself, while I'm doing this sort of thing. Because, I take a look at the literally millions and millions of people, if not billions, that are in some sort of church, temple, coven, or what have you, where so much fear is being propagated. We have a job and a half ahead of us. Now, like I said, I do encourage you to go back to church if you've been missing it. Okay, myself, you can bet your bottom dollar. I'm telling you, it's a great place to go to get the support you're looking for. From my standpoint, I won't. Okay, I run into too many problems. But what I do encourage you to do is take that open feeling, that feeling of uplifted energy that you're feeling now, and carry it into 2023 as best you can. The reality of it from my standpoint is we've got a choice. We can let things continue on the path they're on, and we know where that leads. I mean, it keeps leading the same place. It keeps going back to war. War has never in all of recorded history brought peace. Okay. Now, I will tell you, where it comes to this whole idea of Christmas, okay, one of the best gifts I ever had came from my brother at a time when I was really strapped for money. And what he did was and this also by the way, goes back to the Middle Ages. Okay. The last 200 or 300 years, when things got really, really tough, a Christmas gift may have only been an orange or a little bit of food. The best gift I ever got, didn't change my life, but I'll tell you, it sure stuck with me, was a box of groceries. Well, the thing is, football, the way it's going right now, that is a possibility. Is it a guarantee it'll divide? That is up to the people in the States, not the politicians, but the people themselves. And let us understand, the politicians are simply people with a different job description. That's all. Okay. I mean, we can look at all the things I've heard was going to go on, was going to happen. Like, for instance, California dropping into the ocean. Technically possible. I prefer to look at things and go, okay, is it possible? Certainly. But if we start working now and communicating with those we have contact with, we can turn the tide and stabilize the different countries. But that is up to you, to the individual. If if everybody talks about the world coming to an end, as far as, and we'll just run with that one. If everybody in the States, or if the major majority of people in the States remain convinced that the United States is going to come apart, you can bet your bottom dollar, no matter what the politicians want, no matter what the so-called elite talk about, it will come apart. The question is, that is really important to ask, is, are you going to look in the situation and go, okay, I'm going to look at the negative stuff, and I'm going to spread more word about the negative and really fan the flames of fear, of hatred, of loss. Okay. Now I'm jealous there, Dogface. I gotta go make my dinner, but I'm not doing that yet. And of course, the reality is, for me, sad to say, with my teeth in the shape they're in, I haven't actually had a really good steak in years. So I'm stuck with that neat little thing called poor man's steak, also known as hamburger. But we have a choice. Whether you're in the States, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in China, it doesn't matter. Or any one of the others. Okay, doesn't matter where you are. You have a choice. Okay, and that choice is simple. Okay. That's not a bad idea, Philip. I was just thinking, if it's miles and miles to the church that you felt accepted in, see if you can hitch a ride with UFO and let them drive you there. Good luck with that. Hasn't worked for me all that well. Of course, in all fairness, from my standpoint, I could go off on a real heavy tangent at that point. But what I'm looking at is a very simple issue. We've got to decide, you've got to decide for yourself. Okay. Are you going to spread more information, or are you going to repost the things that say, hey, look who got ripped off, look who got hurt, look who hurt somebody else? Or are you going to start focusing on retweeting or reposting, hey, look, these people got married. Here's a couple that has a wonderful event happening. I remember one I was watching, it was just absolutely priceless. This young lass I happen to know posted on Facebook. She was teaching her kid to talk. Okay. She was teaching him different words, this sort of thing, which anybody that's got kids knows what that can result in. But the munchkin was a little unhappy, so it was in between tears and what have you, where he was saying. Okay, so she turned, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm certainly not going to do it justice. Okay, but she asked the little munchkin, what sound does a chicken make? Well, he goes cluck, right? Then she goes, what sound does a cow make? And he goes moo. Now, bear in mind, okay, we are talking about a kid that is all of about 3-4 years old, if that old. Probably only 2 in all fairness. But then she asks him, what sound does a frog make? And he screams out in amongst his tears. He all of a sudden screams out. And he screams out, he goes, yeah, bet. And the way he said it was just absolutely priceless. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Philip. A ride on a UFO is a riot if you've got the right people. Okay, there are people I would strongly recommend you don't go for a ride with. Of course, there are humans I wouldn't recommend getting into the car. Now, don't take this the wrong way there, Carl. I'm not entirely certain. I'm not entirely certain what who Dolly is. But hopefully it would be an enjoyable ride. Yeah, I don't actually watch commercials. But yeah, it was absolutely priceless. One of the best things I like coming across on Facebook every now and then is somebody will say they will post their child laughing. And there's one thing that I find absolutely almost irresistible is the laughter of a tiny kid. Okay, laughter is so much more enjoyable than screaming at each other. Yep, that would be correct, and that would be right. Yeah, my son isn't going. My youngest son, who lives with me, has told me he's going to be over at his mom's for Christmas Eve. I'll go over there Christmas morning. Right, so we'll end up having Christmas over there. I bought the turkey. She's going to cook it, and trust me, that is a much better option than my doing the cooking. Okay. That's where my biggest weak point is the marketing thing. And that is something I'm going to make a concerted effort to dealing with. Just looking at the chat room here. Uh-oh. Yeah, UFOs are an interesting vehicle. The thing is, mankind is slowly figuring it out, but mankind's got one hiccup. They're looking at gravity backwards. Okay, and that's where they're running into a snag. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. I am not in today's world. I've never been trained in the technical side of things. Okay, I've got basically, I basically work on instinct. And Wendy, glad you could make it. Thanks for joining us. The nice part, what I have decided, in case you guys hadn't figured out by the last week, is that I am doing my best to show up at about 4:30, depending on what my schedule fits. Like right now, I'm not guaranteeing I'll make it. Like yesterday I didn't make it on, but that's because I had company over. And tomorrow I may or may not. That's a bit dicey. Sunday, I certainly will not be on in the afternoon because I won't even be home. But I am starting to look at ways of making things a little bit more enjoyable. I know I've already talked to, like, Chad made me an offer, and quite frankly, Dave did as well. I don't have a computer that'll handle it right now, but both of them have offered to help me set up a different video system. But I've got to have a computer that'll work, and the one I've got right now, I don't trust. In order to make this channel more enjoyable, to make it to draw people a little bit better to it, so that we can get this message out to people and people can start focusing on the positive side of things. Now, there's a lot of negative things that go on, a staggering number of them, in all fairness. Okay. So, there we go. In all fairness, I'm just looking at what Philip wrote here. I thought of Dolly Madison, Dolly Parton, and Dolly the Clone Sheep. Now, the only one of those I don't recognize is Dolly Madison. Tony, thanks so much for joining us. And in case we don't catch up with you, definitely have a Merry Christmas. I am very happy you managed to join us for the time you could. But yes, sleep has to kind of come as a priority. It's like I told my other half. She tells me sometimes. Now we've got a long distance situation, and she goes, I don't want to keep you awake. I said, look, that's not a problem. If I'm tired, whether I'm talking to you or not, is not going to matter. I'm still going to go to sleep. What do we got here? Oh, okay. When this is the time to really take a look at all the positive energy that's running, all the effort people are reaching out with to make, to be nice to each other, to show people a little bit of extra kindness. I strongly encourage you, put your fears behind you as best as you can. Now, yeah, there are those of you that suffer from PTSD. Okay. I like what a friend of mine told me. He gave me a sticker for Christmas one year. Or a fridge magnet, rather. It says, I don't suffer from insanity. I enjoy every minute of it. And the trick is, take a look at your strengths. Those are the things that you find that you look at and go, I can work with this. Now, one of my biggest strengths is putting my foot in my mouth right next to the other one. Okay. Now, I'm not sure how to make that work for me, but what the heck? But it really is time to watch the positive energy that's going on around us and really start working towards putting that as a priority. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about the negative things. I'm saying for you, take a look at the ratio. If you post something that is positive, is negative, post 2 things that are positive. There are positive things happening around you. Okay, they may be hard to spot on occasion, but they do exist. And if we can all start following that kind of a ratio, we will start permeating this world with much more positive energy than what we've been doing. And frankly, the world could use that. We do have the option. You can still stay on the path you're on. You have the option of continuing to post everything negative. Absolutely, you do. Because we do have freedom of choice. We do have free will. What you don't have is freedom from consequence. Okay. And this is the thing we have to look at. Now, something that it would be wise to consider. Oh, okay. So she's from Dolly Madison, was from a little ways back. The thing is, and I see this all the time with the past issues, I tell people, let go, the past itself you cannot change. For those people that are going around vandalizing art, artwork, vandalizing ancient sculptures, destroying them does not destroy the past. Now there's our piece of information. Okay, Jamie Philip is just adding into the chat room because there's been a lot of question. Who, pray tell, is Dolly Madison? Well, James Madison, his wife was Dolly Madison. She was the first lady of the United States during the War of 1812, when the British set fire to the White House in 1814. And she's famous for saving a portrait of George Washington. Yeah, and then he carries on with, we're friends now, obviously. Well, whether you're friends or not at war, I'm not sure. I don't watch politics that closely. What I do know is that Britain and the States are not at war. Okay, that doesn't mean everything's tickety-boo. The things that have happened in the past. There's an old saying that goes, those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. What you're not told is those that dwell on history have the same problem. Okay. Now, I remember the fall of many empires in my past lives. Quite frankly, I was right smack in the middle of a number of them. Just to name a few, I remember the Exodus from Egypt. I remember the fall of Pompeii. Okay, I remember Manoa getting swept into the ocean. By the way, don't swim well if you're in a tidal wave. Okay. I'm just looking at that term there, Philip. I forget who it was that made the comment, but what he said was he was talking to the real, to the real physically, the real sports enthusiasts. He goes, be nice to nerds, because the odds are you're going to be working for one. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. People involved in sports are not inherently stupid people. Many of them are absolutely brilliant. Okay. And this is what we have to remember. Okay. Is that when you look at where what somebody's profession is, many of them are absolutely brilliant, and you wouldn't realize it if you don't take the time to talk to them. It's the same as when you talk to somebody that's really good looking, assuming they haven't gone the route of being absolutely narcissistic, at which point talking to them becomes challenging at best. The reality from that standpoint is many people, yes, they get into a physically active life. Myself tore the leg apart when I was 12, and so much for competition. I figured I was doing good just being able to walk. But you know, much as I am in the process of cutting contact with the company that was supposed to be doing my marketing and what have you, which is a bit of a setback. Okay. The reality of it is it forces me, in a sense, to really take dominant control of my own life and go, this is what I'm aiming for. You know, so where did I put it? You know, let's not tear that apart. Pick that up. I need a blank sheet of paper right there. Hate that. So if I take this, okay, I do what is today. I could wait until the end, but until the end of the month. But I'm looking at it and going, no, I should really get started on it. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a note, and you'll notice I told you by the end of next year, one of my goals is to get my left hand working properly so I can write. That, you know, friend, that wouldn't surprise me there, Philip. It was just, I mean, from my standpoint, it was almost a decade ago, is what it feels like. Of course, I don't track time well. You know, I do know it was Wayne Gretzky that made the quote that I first heard when he said, "You may miss 95% of the shots you take, but you will miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Okay. Hey, Mr. L, welcome aboard. Glad you could make it. You know, the reality of it is we have to take a look at making a point of changing the things we've got some control over. Like I said, I decided that by the end of 23, I'll be able to write properly with my left hand again. Now, right now, that is not a real strong suit of mine. Okay. So what I'm doing is just taking my time with it. And, you know, and again, I'm doing it with my left hand so that I can get it done. And here's the thing, you know, practice does not make perfect, in my opinion, but practice does make better. Okay. So from my end, it's just a simple question of putting the effort into it. And I encourage you guys the same thing. Something else for you, for those of you that are, if you will, getting on. Okay, I was talking to somebody one day, and a lot of people have told me this. If you feel your mind is starting to slip, okay, turn around and learn another language. And, you know, I was talking to a person one day, and what they said about Google Translate is a Google Translate, if you're doing it one sentence at a time, is pretty good. Okay, at least for German, they said. Of course, they spoke German. So realistically, taking a look at it and learning how to, and this is one of those little side jobs, I'm not putting an absolute solid goal on it at this point because I've already got 12 goals. Okay, but by learning another language, you activate another section of your brain, which apparently has been clinically proven to help cut down on mental degradation. Things like senility, Alzheimer's, that sort of thing. Now, for me, I've got Kraft's disease anyway. Okay. And for those of you that don't know what Kraft's disease, it stands for can't remember a freaking thing. There's another word that fits in where that F is. You get to figure it out. Okay. You know, from my standpoint, that applies really strongly to people's names, although I am getting much better at them. At least I'm recognizing people as they come in now. Okay. Don't remember where half of you are from, but that's okay. You know, you may not remember where I'm from. The biggest thing I have trouble remembering where I put it happens to be this funny thing. And you'd think with a coffee cup this size that it wouldn't be that easy to lose. But rest assured, I do that regularly. I will be working. I don't know whether I'll do it tonight, but I have decided. I think it was Wednesday was when I should check that just because I'm curious. Wonder if I can find that out without actually screwing myself completely up. If I go here and I take a look at content, let us see when I did that one post. There we are. Okay. That was done on December 21st, and then we go and check the calendar. December 21st. Yeah, that was on Wednesday. So what I'm looking at is the excerpts that I was talking to you guys about doing regarding the Yldrbacian Chronicles and other things I'm writing. I'm going to look at doing that for the 21st, like for the Wednesday, just to get on a regular routine. Okay, and again, setting things up in a pattern is an excellent way to make things happen properly, is an excellent way to help reclaim power over your life. And I mean, it's up to you to do so. Whoa, just missed something here. I just want to be able to make sure I read it. That's a good way of putting it there, Philip. And yes, I have seen the Ogopogo. Joe, the answer to your question is no, I do not. I do have a blood pressure machine, but I do not take medication. Okay. Because what I found, and for many people, medication works very well. I don't like it, but I did go out and buy a blood pressure machine to keep tabs on it. Okay. Worst case scenario, my heart blows up, I die again. I guess worst case scenario is I don't come back this time. Yes, Philip, you got that right on the money. It would have been about 25 years ago I actually saw Ogopogo. Didn't get to go out and talk to him, but then I was in a car and he was in the lake, and I'm just not driving into the lake. But I'm a firm believer with what I saw. He ain't no sturgeon. My personal opinion on it, you're looking at a long-necked plesiosaur. Where it comes to the Loch Ness itself, I'd be inclined to say, and by the way, they're about 120 million years extinct, at least according to what the scientists are figuring. Okay. The Loch Ness, I'm a firm believer, is either a short-necked plesiosaur or an elasmosaur, one of the two. I understand it is exciting. I know that there's one car in Kelowna. I've watched them do it. They'll drive a convertible. It's an old style convertible. Don't ask me the make, because I haven't got a clue. But they will drive down the beach or down the dock, and they'll drive straight into the lake and carry on. Okay, they've taken their convertible and turned it into an amphibious car. Okay. I don't even, after, the thing is, from my standpoint, where it comes to swimming in the lake, well, frankly, I haven't even walked in the lake in over 10 years. But after I drown, after I drown, I really lost a lot of interest in getting into the water. Yeah, it does. I was absolutely shocked the first time I saw it. I'm looking at this car driving down the dock. I'm going like, there's nowhere to turn around up there, guy. And then all of a sudden, he drives off the end of the dock into the water and carries on. I'm like, wow. I take it you saw the same car. That's you, YJ. I get a kick out of it. People say that seeing is believing. Well, the reality behind it, from everything I've seen, is believing is seeing. In other words, if you will not believe something is possible, the odds of you seeing it and actually witnessing it and paying attention are not good. I saw something the other day, and just today my son brought it out to me. I could not believe how this worked out. This young couple's 8-year-old daughter was absolutely convinced that she was a fairy, as in, large pixie. So, and she was absolutely obsessed with the idea. So one day they figured they'd be nice about it. They figured they'd be nice about it. So while she was sleeping, they bought her a set of wings. Okay. And they put the wings on. They put the wings on while she was sleeping. Well, of course, when she woke up, she had the wings. And she was so convinced she had become, that she really was a fairy. She goes running upstairs and jumps off the top of her house. I don't know if it was 2 stories, or 3 stories, but she jumped off, figuring, I got wings, I can fly, I became the fairy I always knew I was. They buried her. Now, I really feel for the parents that lost her. I really do. Yeah, the Ogopogo is an interesting thing. I when I witnessed it, I watched it roll over. Okay. And again, did I get a photo? Nope. This is the only photo I've got for 99% of what, well, for actually, I think 100% of it. Nope, that's not true. I did actually take a picture of a Mobian starship. Yeah, that wasn't the ending I was looking for either. I mean, it was, it's really sad when people end up with that kind of a tragic loss. Now, I don't know how long ago this happened. I only know that my son just came across it today. I mean, I could tell you all sorts of horror stories about things that have gone completely wrong with people that are absolutely obsessed with things. Now, I've become very reclusive. From the last time when I was on the video from last weekend. Okay. After Friday night, I went to log into work and got told my job had ended. Well, I never even left my house and my apartment except to go down and check the mail since Friday. Today was the first time that I actually left the house. Like I said, I've become dangerously reclusive in a lot of ways. See, that's the thing, YJ. Yeah, YJ's just saying the Ogopogo he saw wasn't even in Okanagan Lake. It was in Mirror Lake, which is connected to the Shuswap Lake. What most people are not really aware of. Okay, and I cannot prove this, but I am a firm believer that the Okanagan Lake, if you go underground, if you go under the mountains and what have you, is connected to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, via a series of underground conduits. And so, I mean, from that standpoint, now my brother had done a little bit of research, and understand my brother had a tested IQ in excess of 180. Okay, and he turned around and said, "Look, in order to maintain a stable growing population, you've got to have roughly 200 pairs. Okay, so you don't get inbreeding. Now, I don't, I mean, let's face it, you don't see them that often. But then again, the plesiosaur was not an air breather. Well, it was an amphib. So, I mean, let's face it, they go underwater, and besides that, many of the underground lakes have air above them. Yeah, he was. That kind of an IQ. He did not have a whole lot of friends. Yeah, I mean, the thing with my brother, and that's the one that his estate is clearing sooner or later. But the reality of it is this: with him, he actually was approached apparently by Mensa, that neat little group of brain children. He was approached by them a half a dozen times to join them, and he flat out looked at them and went, "No way." He wasn't quite that subtle about it, but the reality of it was, from his standpoint, you know, he simply looked at it and went, "No, I've got this kind of a mind." And for any of you that are familiar with the DOS programming, the original computers, well, not the original ones, they were card punch, but with DOS programming, my brother would, in DOS, he would hit print said program, or type said program rather, and then the program, he'd let it run all the way down. Okay, then he'd go back up and correct it. That is sad. Well, it's no wonder he looked at them and went, "Holy mackerel." The other thing about IQ is this. I appreciate the information there, Philip. 10 years ago, I was looking at a site. I went looking to see what the average IQ was. 10 years ago, the average IQ was 100 to 120. Okay. Earlier this year, I went looking again, and the average IQ at this point, using the same people, was 85. Okay, now you can drive your own IQ up. You can, and it really boils down to whether or not you pay attention to what's going on around you. Now, before anybody gets any brilliant ideas, I have no idea what mine is. I've been told a number of different numbers, and some of them are just bizarre. I agree with you. The thing there, Philip, is if 100 is average, I don't know anymore. From my standpoint, it doesn't really matter to me, because I will talk to people whether they are slow or whether they are absolutely brilliant. I talk to them the same way, because for me, there's no functional difference. I start off, even when I'm talking to a child, I will start off using terminology that adds up for me. Not necessarily what makes sense to them. But if they don't get it, then I'll rephrase it and try and explain it in slightly simpler terms. No, that is absolutely correct there, Philip. You can be the smartest person on the planet. Like, my brother was phenomenally friendly. I mean, to give you an idea of how friendly he really was, and this is where somebody goes and calls out, well, how friendly was he? Well, the reality of it is, what a bumblebee is. My brother would let them land on him, and then he would pet them. Okay, he would literally have it on his hand, and he'd sit there, and he'd simply pet the bumblebee. I mean, this is just incredible. From my standpoint, am I educated in the traditional fashion? Well, I did graduate on the honor roll grade from grade 12. But where it comes to social skills, yeah, I probably failed those. I mean, from my standpoint, it really boils down to this. It's simply a case of, no matter who you are, no matter who you're dealing with, treat them the way you desire to be treated. This is the way to turn this world back around and get people back on a decent group. The answer to your question there, football, is I have no idea, because the reality of it is you can gauge whether a person's got intelligence, whether they've got the wisdom. But gauging an actual number requires knowing what the formula is that's being used. Okay. And psychics on the whole do not work that way. Tell you what, Carl, the more you experience life, the more you interact and the more research you do, the more you know. And IQ boils down to being able to take all that information that you've got and put it in line, and turn it into something you can replicate. Okay, that you can turn around and work with. It doesn't make you a better person. A high IQ, I've seen people with absolutely phenomenal IQs, and you sit there looking at them going, and you're treating people poorly. Why? That's the biggest problem. Yeah, emotional IQ and spiritual IQ, you are absolutely correct, YJ. Those are two forms that really people don't recognize. Now from my standpoint, where it comes to individuals, I have never separated. Well, I shouldn't say I never did. I underestimated a woman one day. I was asking for help, and 3 teenagers had volunteered to show up. Now you got to understand the size of my table. Greetings, Raven. Glad you can make it today. Hope your time has been going well. My table that my dad and my grandfather made me, they literally made it because I was en route, is 3.5 feet wide and 6 feet long. One piece of 3/4 inch plywood plus a few extra little pieces. But 3 kids had said, yeah, we'll come help you move. The only one that showed up was a girl that was all of maybe 5 feet tall. Okay, maybe. The 2 guys that were powerfully built, and she wasn't built all that strong. Okay. The reality of it is, when she showed up, I took a look at her and went, oh, this isn't going to work so well. I'm glad that you showed up. Thank you very much. But I looked at the table and went, because it outweighed her. I mean, that was just the way it was. Right. I says, I just don't think you're going to be able to help. So she walks up, leans her shoulder into the end of it, grabs it by the table leg and hauled the thing off the table and goes, where do you want it? Hold it off the floor. And I'm looking at it and going, okay, never again. Yeah. You ever notice that, Raven? The colder it gets, the harder it gets to type. This is one of the reasons I've got the temperature in this room reasonably warm. If it gets too warm for me, I'll open the window and drop it like that. Of course, it's minus what? I am curious about that now that I brought it up. Yeah. Oh, wow. It was minus 18 earlier. Actually, I think it was minus 21 earlier. But we're up to minus 11, which makes it about 10 degrees in Fahrenheit. Oh, very definitely. You can. Do not do that. Yeah, well, that one's going to have to ring because I can't do anything with it. There we go. Problem with phones. I don't need that either. I should one day remember to turn that thing off. What do you think? But I've gotten very good at ignoring phone calls. So now I can pick a phone up and somebody will say, this is so-and-so from such and such a click. I'm not interested. Okay. But I have found I kind of have to answer the phones to deal with people. Especially if I'm going to work on bringing book sales up, on actually building prosperity. I'm going to require other people. Okay. The nice part about things is, like I said, we have freedom of choice. We have free will. So I take a look at the call coming in. Right now, it boils down to this. Okay. We are looking at a situation where the world is pretty cut and dried. Okay. You have a choice. We can, as individuals, we can write, we can repost, we can turn around, repost the negative, and negative things do happen. But something I came to understand is that people doing the negative things many times, especially if they're breaking the law, that actually is why I turned it and why I turned it on. Carl, the reality is you hear all these weird sounds. It's like, okay, which one's mine? So mine I recognize. And like you, I remember the old rotary phones. Crikey, when I was a kid, we had a party line. There were 9 people on the same line. Okay. But we had it worked out in the community that and I forget what the word was that my parents used. But if there was an emergency, any adult could take the phone from the kid, say one word or a short phrase, I don't know what it was, but they'd say it into the phone, and every kid on the other end of the line would just hang the phone up. Yeah, we used to be at -40 down here. As a matter of fact, mid-January to mid-February, 30 years ago, 40 years ago when I first got here. Yeah, 40 years ago, roughly, we would have -40 plus wind chill and 3 to 4 feet of snow. Not fun. I mean, I've lived in that. I am much happier with the warmer weather. It's pretty bad when -10 feels warm, but we are in the middle of winter. Yeah, you notice that too, YJ. Yeah, when I was growing up, I was in Comox. And the thing I have found is things come in, they come in, in waves. But right now, what's happening, and it's really imperative that we start looking at this. Are you surrounding yourself with people that are constantly, you have to fear this. The world's going to end. Somebody's going to come down and straighten it out, and it's everybody else's fault. If you're surrounding yourself with people that are constantly on the negative side, you may be having troubles moving forward. The sad reality of it is, find a group that is uplifting, that makes you feel better, that when you get done talking to them, they come out of it feeling a little bit better, a little more motivated. And I must say, with the group that I've got in this chat room, the answer to that question there, Raven. Raven's asked, that little girl who jumped off the roof, shouldn't she have at least had a soft landing? Yeah, we'll get to that part in a second. The answer to your question, from the picture that was on the video that my son showed me, it was solid, hard ground that she was landing on. And in all fairness, you can drop into a snowbank. If you land on the back of your head, you're going to break your neck anyway. Now, as for the other part of your observation there, it says, many of you said that metaphysical teachings all say to believe with all your heart and the universe will provide your desire. There's one thing they forget to tell you. Okay, reality is a cooperative effort. And I do agree, if you believe in your heart that you can attain something, that's where you're pushing all the energy towards. However, you're up against 8 billion other people that may not believe the same thing. So you have to believe so strongly that you override their influence, especially the influence of the ones around you. Angels in life, glad you made it. Merry Christmas to you as well. This year, the way I'm looking at it, this year is going to be an absolutely bizarre year, as in 2023. Okay. See, now for me, that's warm. Joe's just saying it's 6 degrees here in Ortonville, Michigan. Yeah. And unfortunately, I agree with you. When things are cold, it's really hard to stay focused, to stay up and mobile. And I love what I'm seeing here. Most people coming in here are wishing people Merry Christmas. This is something that, whether you believe in Christmas or not, is irrelevant. Okay? It's the energy that goes behind it. Diane, how you doing? Glad you could make it. There are some people, I'm sure I've missed a few people coming in, and for those that have come in that I have missed, my apologies. I do my best, but let's face it, that's not exactly my strong suit, as in spotting everybody coming through the door. But it's really imperative in 2023 to take this energy that we've got now and really start drawing it into 2023 as we go along. But do not wait until New Year's Day. Start the process now, if you would be so kind as to do so. Because it's going to be an issue of all of us, as many of us as possible, working on that little area. Working on the idea of let's get along a little better. The reality of it is that from your standpoint, it really boils down to, again, whether we choose to focus on the negative, and negative does happen. But in all fairness, I'm not a sports fan. I'm really not. But I would rather see the sport and the total the score on a football game on the front page than who murdered who. I really wish that. But unfortunately that doesn't happen very much. The nice part about what we can do as a society is we can absolutely turn things around. This is why I looked at it and went, okay, here's a ratio we should be able to deal with as individuals. Okay. Holy mackerel. That's almost worth making. I don't even know if I can get across the border right now. I haven't looked into it yet. I do know I can't afford to travel right now. And that will be the biggest problem. And you're going to have to hang on just 5 seconds. So I'll be right back. You rang. Yes, you do. Ouch. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned before, we've got a 17-year-old, and the fact he lives with me, he gets dominant priority over everybody. Okay. The thing is, and this is why I said one of the ratios that we can look at is if you are posting something negative or you're reposting something as some sort of bad news, absolutely turn around and spread news like post two things that are positive and that are of a positive nature. I look at it and I go, okay, you can in any event, you can certainly find something positive. Now, I will agree with you wholeheartedly before anybody jumps on that. The young lass I was talking about that jumped off the roof. Okay, little hard to see something positive there. Okay, but if we want to take a look at the positive side of that, absolutely horrendous thing to have to lose a child. I'm a firm believer that burying your own kid is the worst thing that any parent can go through. Well, no, not necessarily. Having your kid arrested and convicted of murder or something else that puts them in prison, that's probably harder, but in all fairness, I've never gone through that this lifetime. Let's just hope that stays that way. Okay. But from my standpoint, and I've told even people that come to me and are in the middle of getting a reading or a business call, if my son calls and needs something, I will absolutely put things on hold and go, he's first. I warn them ahead of time, look, if that happens, either one of my two boys, they are my priority. Okay. Now, absolutely do understand my own health comes before theirs because, frankly, if I don't pay attention to my health, you got to remember your health, you may have a better healing rate than they do. You may have a better recovery rate. This all has to be taken into consideration. One of the biggest things that we have to look at with reality. I've been in a place. I tell you, if you've ever been in any sort of a snowstorm, I remember years ago, would have been 2000. Where was it? Was it not 2000 rather? Would have been the winter of 1987. I was coming back across Canada from Ontario, and I was cutting through the bottom end of Manitoba. Now, Manitoba is pretty narrow at the bottom, but I had a whiteout going on that I could not see the hood of my car. Okay. And I was still clipping out at I buried it. I don't know how fast it was going. It was going well over 120. And I'm traveling along, and all of a sudden it was like somebody took the blizzard, took a chunk of it out of the way and moved it aside, and went, you might want to look at this. So here's a semi stalled across 4 lanes of traffic. Now it was just, the reality of it was that it was a low box, and if I had not got out of the way, I'd have been decapitated like that. So instead, I yanked a hard right past a sign that said soft shoulder on the outside of the sign, back up onto the road, and right smack into a whiteout. Not a brilliant move, but I did live through it. We were supposed to have snow all day today, and frankly, I don't think we had any. For me, I look at it going, like, I'm a firm believer that, if we could have snow, if we could have snow show up on Christmas Eve, stick around all day Christmas Day, and then disappear somewhere between Christmas Day night and Boxing Day morning, I'd be happier than all get out. You've got your white Christmas. Okay, and I will admit, a white Christmas looks nice. You've got your white Christmas, you've got your snowpack, and then we've got back to decent weather. And the reality is with the people around here, I don't know about where you guys are, but I will tell you, half the people that have driver's licenses here shouldn't. They really should not have driver's licenses. Matter of fact, most of them shouldn't be allowed a car, but that's just my personal opinion. You know, when we take a look at what's coming in 2023, and I'm not going to give you a whole breakdown, I'm going to drop it into your hands. Okay. You have a choice. We can take this positive energy that everybody's feeling, that most people are feeling right now, and you can focus on that, and you can turn around. Okay. Oh heavens! The funny thing is, Philip, years ago, I remember a young lady. Now understand, Highway 97 or Harvey Avenue, which runs right through the middle of Kelowna, is 3 lanes going each direction. Okay. I know of one lady in particular that during her practical test for her driver's license, Sandra, welcome aboard. Glad you could make it. During her practical test, she drove the wrong way down 97, and they still gave her license. Now, for me, I'm thinking there's a problem here. That's just unfortunately, and people, it's like, I'm going to change lanes. Well, yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, this is normal. This is one of the reasons why I don't drive much. I just don't like the stress of it anymore. Yeah, we got dark about, where are we, 6? We got dark about an hour and a half ago. From my standpoint, it really boils down to, I'm inside, it doesn't matter too much to me whether it gets dark. But we have a choice. We can take the positive energy that we've got here and keep pushing it to make it last as long as possible. Now, in my opinion, and this is just in my household, on New Year's Eve, okay, if I haven't done it beforehand, New Year's Eve, all the decorations come down. I do not put decorations up. There are no Christmas songs, no Christmas movies. This is my way of looking at it. Okay, it's been this way my entire life. Okay, there is no Christmas movies, no songs, no decorations, none of it, except one aspect. If you're putting lights outside, I recommend you get them strung before the beginning of December, primarily because I don't like the cold. Okay, but on New Year's Eve, I pull the plug on all the decorations. They all get folded up and put away again. See, in my case, I lucked out. I ended up getting my license on the first run. I did the same thing with both my motorcycle and my car. Now, I am not what I consider a good driver. Safe, yes, or cautious, absolutely. Am I a good driver? No. But I've been driving for 40 years now and I haven't been in an accident. I haven't even lost control of my car the last time I did was 2011. Right. And then I just slid into a snowbank. There was nobody else involved. Just me, my car, and the snowbank. Now, would if I were to take the driving test now, the odds are I'd fail it because I also haven't parallel parked in probably 30 years. That's, and that's just it, YJ. It used to be a case like years and years and years ago. Christmas trees went up on Christmas Eve. The presents went under the tree if there were any. And then everything got closed down on Boxing Day. Okay. I just find from my standpoint, there's enough going on. And I've always had the decorations up. I've had to cut back on the decorations because I can no longer get to the roof to hang the garlands I used to. I used to have garlands all the way down the entire house. So I mean, the thing we have to look at here is if we take this positive energy, if we really focus on simply being nice to people, smiling at them, saying hi, opening doors. Okay, just the simple what I was raised to believe was common courtesy. Okay, if we choose to take that into the new year, 2023 can be mind-bogglingly enjoyable. It can be absolutely a beneficial thing. But it is up to each and every one of you to decide what you're going to do with it. That's just the reality behind it. I can tell you this is necessary. I can tell you this is the path that I tend to follow and I tend to follow. Okay. I can certainly tell you not focusing on the positive will make your life feel a whole lot better. Okay. I know this from practical experience and from the number of people that I've talked to over the years. When I take a look at my client base, over the length of my career, I'm well over 80,000 clients. That's where I pull my statistics from, not from any government report, just from what I know. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, Philip. Philip's just saying, I've been in more snowbanks more times as a passenger than a driver. It's important to have the right tires on icy roads. Absolutely it is. And I always found when I was driving, when I was driving, I found out one very simple thing. If I'm traveling down the road and it looks like it's going to be like the weather's going to be a little off, I take my foot off the gas. It's really weird, I feel it slip a little and it's like, no, I think I'll ease my gas off. That seems to work rather nicely. Oh, that ought to be a riot, Sandra. The little ones do have a tendency of bringing out a lot of excitement. I get a kick out of it because my father, I remember up until he was in his 50s, was really excitable. He was really happy about the whole Christmas thing. But I look at it this way. Every one of you is a child. Okay? If you don't believe me, take a look at your lineage. Do you have parents? Even if you were born in a test tube, you've got parents. And if you have parents, you're a child. Okay. But it's time to bring the fun back. It's time to bring the mystery of Christmas and the joy of Christmas back. Yes, it's only one time of the year. Okay, it's this one little window. But that's a window that you can build the anticipation for. So starting before the end of this year, which is evidenced by the fact that somewhere around, gravity works. Sometimes portals work too in my world. As in drop something and it goes missing. What is that? That stuff I'm working on. The thing is, they bring back the excitement. I mean, the thing I got a kick out of as I was growing up, I found this out with a lot of kids. One of the things we did to make it much more exciting was make it complicated to get into the gift. And that was one of the challenges that we had, and it's something I'm bringing back for next year. You should have tried where I grew up there, Joe. You had the runway, you had the airport, the runway come along, and the runway ended here. And then you go off the runway a little bit, and you have the tree line, and then my house. So I understand exactly what you're talking about with the ground rumbling. I mean, my little brother and I, we'd hear the planes getting ready to take off. We go running outside, and then you'd lay on the ground and feel the vibration as they rumbled over top. We had 3 situations. They blew up 3 fighter planes right over top of our house, where the engines exploded. Missed our house, which is a good thing. It was the old F-101s, what were called Voodoos. Okay. We had 3 of them blow up over top of our house. I mean, you want to try something that rumbles, I'll do it. But it's time to bring the joy. It's time to bring the happiness that you remember and that hopefully you remember as a kid back to the people around you, back to your own home to start with, and then to the people around you. Because the more we do that, the better this world is going to turn around. And that's what we've got to focus on. Okay. Unless, of course, you're enjoying this degradation of society. If you're having fun with the collapse of it, who am I to tell you? Okay. I've walked myself into enough corners. I just came to the conclusion I'm not interested in doing that anymore. So, like I said, I've got a list of goals put together already regarding where I desire my world to go. So I'm doing everything I can to reclaim power over my life. And this is one of those things that I do want to talk to you guys about more, about how to go about doing that. Instead of this idea of let's live in a world where we fear everything and we're told everything is impossible. Okay, because the time has arrived to really focus on what we can do. I like the way the American military put it. The difficult we're already doing. The impossible simply takes a little longer. Okay. Now, I am living proof of the impossible things happening. Okay. Yeah. Motorcycles can be dangerous, but here's the thing. I'm just looking at what Philip is saying. Those only work for, the thing is, the speed limits only work for the people that are actually willing to follow them. I was going through a parking lot the other day and nearly got run over by somebody doing somewhere close to 40 miles an hour. And yes, I did say 40 miles. Okay. Through a parking lot. And no, he wasn't being chased by the police. I mean, the reality of it is when you're looking at a vehicle, whether it's a car or a motorcycle, it doesn't matter. Okay, you have to treat the thing with respect. Okay, when it comes to people, you've got to treat them with respect. Because if you think about it, I'm just looking at this, that the motorcycles sound dangerous. That, and this is just something that Philip has mentioned. And here's the thing. Take a motorcycle, put it in neutral, put the kickstand down, and turn it on. Okay. Now, if you walk away from said motorcycle, it's not going anywhere. It's no more dangerous than anything else. It's the same thing I've told people where it comes to guns. You take a gun, you load it, you cock it, and whatever you do, for pity's sakes, don't do that. But a loaded and cocked gun, if it is left alone, will not shoot anybody. A car, if it is left alone, even if it's running, will not run over people. Okay, the vehicle, well, yeah, if it's on, and that's the thing. You can arrange it, absolutely. I mean, you could also go with the idea that a gun won't shoot anybody unless it's in a fire, at which point the bullet's going to go off anyway. But I mean, I remember reading an excerpt from a court case. The guy had been charged with vehicular homicide, and the accused looks at and judge goes, how do you plead? And the accused goes, innocent. Judge says, what do you mean innocent? You ran over the young lad. Well, yes, and I do feel terrible about that, but I didn't, but it was not murder. You ran over him in his living room. And the defendant looks at the judge and goes, I understand that, Your Honor, but it still was not murder. It was a pure accident. Right? And the judge goes, he was sitting on his couch. The guy goes, well, yeah, I understand that, sir. And it was a terrible thing, but it was an accident. I was aiming for his mother. So, I mean, needless to say, there are extenuating circumstances and exceptions to every single rule. Okay. The one thing I would like to say is please do your very best to take the positive energy that is permeating this world right now, in spite of all the chaos going on, and do your best to draw it into the new year and beyond. Okay, and again, this is simply a question of if you're posting things that are of a negative nature. Okay, if you're posting things of a negative nature, and I do mean reposting them or stating them yourself, you do one that's negative, do two that are positive. That ratio will help turn things back around. Now, we are just passing the 2-hour mark here. So I'm looking, I am going to bring this to a close. I will do my best to be back on tomorrow. Saturday, it's Christmas Eve, so I shouldn't have too much trouble with it. Sunday, I certainly will not be on. I'll be too busy. But with that in mind, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy you did. I'm going to call it a night and wish you all a very, very happy, Merry Christmas. The Happy New Year will come soon. Have a very Merry Christmas, and I will catch up with you ASAP. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.